Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innova.Buzz, and I'm really excited today to welcome to the Innova.Buzz podcast, all the way from Inglewood in New Jersey, the USA, Hilary Russo, who's a holistic health coach, a havening techniques practitioner, and an award-winning TV journalist who covers health and wellness. Welcome to the Innova.Buzz podcast, Hilary. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
From across the pond, it is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, Jason Van Orden, who was our guest on episode 275, and Michael Roderick, he was our guest on episode 328. They introduced us through one of their events. So, big hello to both Jason and Michael.
Definitely. They are connectors, if that. I've known Michael for probably 15 years, and he's always been such a connector of people. And I call him the connector of connectors. I've had him on my show as well. And then, of course, bringing him together with Jason, it's such a wonderful group to be able to have like minds together, podcasters who are in all different areas and supporting each other in different ways, you know?
That's right. Yeah. It's always good when those sort of groups are formed. Particularly, what I find exciting is that it's not just the diverse range of podcasters, but also from all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Definitely. Yeah, we're from everywhere. We definitely are.
that's right. Now, I'm really excited because in one of those sessions, you actually demonstrated the havening technique for me in a little breakout group. So I feel as though I've had a kind of little short masterclass, just almost one-on-one, I think it was. So I'm keen to dig into that a little bit deeper and share that information with our listener today. Also, you talk quite a bit about how to use that technique plus other techniques that you work with in handling everyday stresses in life and being kind to your mind.
Mhm.
Before we talk about all those things, though, what's the impact you're making in the world today, Hilary?
Oh, that is a great question. I love that. I don't know if I've ever been asked that just straight up at the top of a show, but what impact am I making? Well, I'd like to think that I am leaving the space to touch, move, and inspire others, to create a space for people to realize that they can find inner healing within themselves. I mean, obviously, holistic means whole body, and taking a holistic approach means being your own healthcare advocate. It means being one that realizes that you can heal from within and really uh, be kind to your mind, as I always say, you know?
Hmm.
So if I
Yeah,
can leave a
that
space to do that, if I can share with people and touch, move, inspire them in some way to remind them that you have the tools to begin the healing yourself, whether you need support or not. It does begin within.
that's a really powerful message and wonderful mission. One of the things you said there is that we have the ability to heal ourselves, and as someone who has health as a very high value,
Mm.
it always puzzles me that people fall into this victim mentality when it comes to health, whether it's mental
Mhm.
health or physical health. I mean, I've seen both. Um, what um, what would you say to virtually everybody in terms of this message of we have the power to heal ourselves?
The thing I see happening is that we're giving away a lot of power. We are so fortunate to have modern medicine to support us and assist us where we need it. But if we, if you, and anyone listening is so quick to give up our own power of knowing that our body has the ability to heal, instead of going right to the band-aid or right to
Mm,
thinking about the diagnosis and the symptom and you know the illness, then we're already putting a label on it and not giving our bodies a chance, and us and our mind a chance to realize that we can truly make a difference if we start with our own healing process, you know, and then if you need the
mm,
support, that's fine. So giving
mm,
that away so quickly when we come from a space where, you know, going back to the days of Hippocrates and even further than that, that food is thy medicine, medicine is thy food. There's so many healers out there from years ago that talked about that. And fortunately, we're getting back to that kind of approach of the holistic approach, integrative medicine, which is bringing the modern and the Western med and the Eastern meds together. But I think it's really that. It's really taking your power back. And that goes
Mm.
with everything. Take your power
Yeah.
back.
Mm. Yeah. Very powerful message. Take your power back. And my business coach said something to me. It was in the context of something completely different, but I thought that's a really powerful way to look at it. And it was, um, I think somebody had in the group we were working with, somebody had injured themselves. It was broken or sprained ankle, and they and it had happened the previous day or previous days, and they were still feeling a little sorry for themselves. And she said, well, the moment that happened, the instant after that happened, your body is healing. And I thought, wow, that's a really powerful way to reframe if you've hurt yourself in
Mm-hmm.
any way. So the instant after that happened, your body is actually healing. And
I love that.
it really changes things, doesn't it, when you have that mindset?
Yes, I mean, when we were put on this planet, that's we're a machine. We're a machine that
Mm,
knows how to grow, how to live, how to survive, how to thrive. And the thriving, I think, comes more with the mindset. The surviving is innate. It's part of us as
mm,
animals that we are on this earth, right? But I love that. I don't know if I've ever heard that before, but it's so true because when you think about the fact that we aren't just pieces of putty that were put on this planet. We actually have a mechanism, a machine, like a vehicle that's running, and we need to trust that more. And that begins like right here in our minds. Our minds are really the
mm,
wheel that are guiding us. We're taking away the control from ourselves, and that's not good.
mm. All right. Well, in the lead up to our recording, we were talking a lot about self-talk
Mhm.
and how the self-talk plays into this. So tell us a little bit more about your work with people
Yeah.
and helping them use their self-talk in a positive way to help them in this holistic healing space.
Well, we have anywhere between 50 and 70, 80,000 thoughts a day. And it's very common that we go to the negative and we don't choose positive ones because the brain is conditioned, if it's in uncertainty, to go to the negative. We, as a people, as a human people, need to understand that we're still animals, and that amygdala, that fight, flight, freeze, or
Mm,
fawn, is instantly going to go into survival mode. So if there's no answer, and many of us do like to have answers, we want to know what's going on. We live in that uncertainty, and when you live in uncertainty, you're instantly going to go to the negative. So it's really up to each and every one of us to condition ourselves to bring ourselves back. It doesn't mean negative things don't happen. It doesn't mean that unpleasant things don't happen in our lives. But how long do you want to stay there? How long are you going to
mm,
fester about it, right? Much like what you mentioned about the healing of when you cut yourself and fall, you instantly begin healing. When are you going to start healing those thoughts that you have too? So the negative self-talk is very common. We are our own worst bullies. We are the worst kid on the playground. We are
mm,
constantly self-doubting ourselves, and it really takes time and conditioning to get ourselves out of that. It doesn't mean it never happens, because again, it goes back to the amygdala protecting us from that saber-toothed tiger back in the day. And the amygdala, as we call her Amy in the world that I work in mental health, uh, it's really important for us to nurture Amy and let her know that everything's okay. And that in itself will allow you to spend less time in that negative space and choose better thoughts, right? Because 70, 50,000, even 10,000, that's a lot of thoughts in a day. So it's
yeah,
really up
that.
to you and me to choose good ones.
Mm. And a lot of the 95% or 99% of those probably are happening unconsciously, right? So it's
Right.
so what's your advice on kind of bringing some of those or bringing a lot of those thoughts into consciousness so that we're aware of them first of all, and then saying, okay, how can we turn those positive if they're
Yeah.
negative or if they're not serving us? I mean, clearly the survival mechanism has an absolutely critical role to play. I mean,
Hmm.
we don't want to sort of walk out into the middle of the street when there's heavy traffic, for example, but at the same time, we might want to take some calculated risks, for example, in business
Correct.
to achieve something new.
Right. And there's realistic optimism and unrealistic optimism, right? So
Mm,
you're not going to be like, I'm just going to drive without a seatbelt because I'm such an optimist, I'll never get into a car accident. That's unrealistic optimism. Realistic optimism is I'm going to do what I need to do to protect myself and be a defensive driver and wear my seatbelt, but be aware of things around me, but not get in the car in a heat of panic, thinking everyone's out to get me and hit me. Okay. So that's the difference in the mindset. And I tend to use the car and the vehicle a lot because most of us do
mm,
have cars. And if we don't, we've been in
mm,
one. But it's the idea that we truly need to choose. And it is, I choose to choose what our thoughts are. And like I mentioned before, you're going to have negative thoughts. That's okay. Honor them, feel them. But the real thing is how long are you going to stay there? And the other thing goes back to something I never came up with, but I use it a lot, and it's the think method. Because a lot of times when people get into a funk or have a bad day, you ever notice that it spirals and the entire day
mm,
can be bad because of that first thought? What you're doing is you're allowing what could be, are you really having a bad day or a bad 5 minutes? Right. And the
mm,
minute you start realizing it might just be a bad moment, a bad 5 minutes, and you turn that thought around and you ask yourself the think method, which is it true what you're telling yourself? Is it honest? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? THINK. When you
mm,
ask yourself those 5 questions, it's very common for you to go into a different headspace because you sit there going, all right, Hilary, all right, Jurgen, maybe I'm a little out of whack on this one, right? And you bring yourself back to this place of reality because you cannot find the calm in the chaos. If your brain is in
mm.
chaos, you're not going to find the calm, which is kind of the work I do, where I work both in the trauma field, but also just in everyday upsets with people to help them find that calm in the chaos and turn the narrative and the traumas into the triumphs.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the think method.
Mm-hmm.
It's one to remember. Uh, I've noticed I have times where something will go wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and usually that's okay. I sort of move on. And if the second thing goes wrong in short succession, a thought that often comes up is, okay, that's two things. There's going to things go in threes. There's going to be the next thing that goes wrong, which is a really bad thought if I catch myself having that, because what I'm looking for the next
Yeah.
thing to go wrong, rather than turning around and say, okay, second thing went wrong, move on. What do I need to do? I need to fix it, or do I just move on and let it be, and look for the positive? So
Mm-hmm.
how can we do that reframe in a practical sense, and particularly to get it happening real quick?
Oh boy, self sabotage, self fulfilling prophecies, all of those things are very common because the reason why, and this goes back to the brain being in uncertainty, is that we're preparing ourselves for something so we are not unprepared. So at
Mm,
least we're preparing for something, even if it's negative. We don't tend to prepare for the positive, right? It's the brain, the way it's conditioned. But you can change that, right? And like I have a program called Hug It Out. And the Hug It Out program is based on, it's an acronym basically. And you have to do your own healing, your own understanding, and your own gratitude, meaning that have healing for yourself, be open to that possibility, have a better understanding of who you are and where you're coming from, and then have that space for appreciation and gratitude. So for instance, an intention, moving into the it out. But the main thing there is the hug. And being able to do that, you're basically saying to yourself that, okay, I have control over this. This is self empowerment. This is self talk this is self-awareness, because the first step to any change has to be awareness. If you feel like something's
mm,
off, that's great that you feel that something's off, because you're resisting something, and there's tension and friction, which means you're aware. If you were not aware and you were just like, whatever, nothing good happens to me, you go about your day, keep tripping over things, you're not really aware. You're kind of giving in to this way of being. So good for you, standing in the tension and realizing that there's an awareness to something that seems off kilter. That means that you're actually meeting with your higher self, your higher power that wants you to succeed, wants you to do well, right? So I think it's really a lesson in really listening to yourself more, because our intuition, our gut, is usually right. We just
mm.
love to go against it. And that's where
Yeah.
things go awry, you know?
Yes, intuition is really powerful. And you've actually reminded me of something that I haven't thought of for a long time, but it was just on this idea of intuition, and often we don't trust it. Back in the days, and I'm aging myself a little bit here, people used to write one another letters. And I had
I remember those
friends all
days.
around the world. Yeah, yeah. Friends all around the world, and we would write each other letters.
Mhm.
And it was uncanny how often I would think of a person, and that very day, a letter would appear in the mailbox from that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I don't know whether that was pure coincidence, and I just noticed that each time,
Mhm.
because I'm sure there were times I would think of that person and there was no letter.
Mhm.
But I always reflected on that when it happened and think, gee, my intuition is actually quite powerful. I'd sort of there must be something there that um, is connecting me with the fact that there's a communication close by with that person,
Mhm.
and so I think of them.
I think that our intuition and our gut is like a Doppler radar. We call it Doppler radar here in the States. I don't know what it might be called elsewhere, but it's the radar that the meteorologists use when they're telling us about the weather, right?
Hmm.
And you're not going to go outside without an umbrella if the meteorologist says there's a 100% chance of rain and hail. You might not even go outside
Yeah.
if you know that. When you go out there without the umbrella or the raincoat, you're taking a gamble and you're going against the gut of the Doppler radar. You're like that radar. And it's all energy, it's all frequency. And I don't mean that in a woo woo way. I mean that clearly, that we are made up of energy. We are moving particles. We are putting out
Hmm.
frequencies and vibrations. So when you make a choice and you're consciously just, and it's subconscious too, when you're thinking about something like writing a letter to someone, or you think about someone and the phone rings all of a sudden and it's that person, or you're like, wow, I could, you're thinking about making more money, and and then you just let it go. When you let it go, the act of surrender and letting go is usually when those things show up. When you put attachment to them is when you're creating the resistance. Oh, I need this. Oh, I want this. I hope this happens. That's attachment. And that actually creates more resistance and more blocks from whatever it is that you're wanting into your space. It's when you just clearly are thinking about it and let it be a fleeting thought and it goes away, that the letter that you wrote to that friend is when that friend calls you. The money that
Hmm.
you are thinking about probably comes into your pocket in some way, even if it's just finding $5 in your pocket. And that's letting go and the surrender. And that truly is where manifesting is. And I'm a firm believer in that, Jurgen, because that happens to me all the time as well. It's when I hold on to things with an attachment and I don't let go, that I'm actually pushing it further away from being in my space.
Hmm. Hmm. Fascinating. All right. Now, we haven't touched on havening yet. That's one of the techniques you use. And I was
Is
certainly really, really inspired by your demonstration. So, what is havening, and what can it do for you?
Great. I love talking about havening techniques. This is a modality that I use in my practice. It's neuroscience based. I'm really fortunate that I was able to study under the founding doctors, Dr. Ron and Steve Rudin. And Dr. Ron, who both of them are doctors. One is a dentist, one's an internist. But Dr. Ron, who was the internist, was the first one to ever haven me. And it was on the trauma of the loss of my father. And when I had that happen when I was attending a workshop, I realized if this works and I'm able to release this upset, this true trauma that I dealt with for 16 years, I'm going to bring this into my practice. And that's exactly what happens. So what havening is, it's a neuroscience based approach that uses touch, the havening touch, and positive thoughts, pleasant distractions. So when you bring those positive thoughts to mind, or if you're not a visual person, it could be as easy as humming a song, singing a song, focusing on something in the distance that might bring you joy, or just being present. When you bring the positive or pleasant distraction together with the havening touch, which is like you're washing your hands or giving yourself a nice hug, crossing your arms from your shoulders down to your elbows or on your face, those three touches done, you can do either any of those three or just stay with one with the pleasant distraction. What that does is it changes the landscape of your brain. It alters your thoughts, your moods, your behaviors, your habits rapidly, many times permanently, and puts your brain in what we call a delta wave state. And delta waves that's your sleep state, that's your subconscious
Mm.
mind. That is where you're able to turn the chaos into calm, right? When you're in that sleep delta state and you are awake, you're not sleeping, that's where you can make better decisions. That's where you can find clarity and focus. That's where you can finally fall asleep at night. Or if it's deeper rooted and you're working with somebody like myself, who's a practitioner and certified in this, we can get to the deep rooted trauma of things and change the landscape of your brain, because trauma is one of those words, Jurgen, that's really a buzzword that's overused. I think not a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
understand trauma. So working with a trauma informed practitioner like myself can really help you get to the root of whatever it is, the blocks that might be causing the business not to go to the level it wants, the relationship, your body and your health. All of those things can be worked on and worked through with something as beautiful as havening techniques.
Mm. Yeah, and it seems to me that, well, certainly the experience I had was it was very powerful, and we just did it
Good.
over, across the screen. So I'm guessing maybe in person there's even more power to it. Um,
Well,
what?
we've actually found, I want
Yeah.
to I want to emphasize on that, during this pandemic, especially, everybody was, in their
Mm.
homes, and I feel like that made me a better practitioner during that time because I couldn't see my clients in person. But we found over a time, and there's only about 800, I don't think there's even 800 yet at the time of this recording, that are actually certified practitioners, most of which are over across the pond, by the way. We only have about 200 here in the United States, and I'm one of the first 150 that's been certified. But what we found is that a lot of people are enjoying the possibility of the telehealth and
Mm.
telecoaching, because they can be in the comfort of their own homes. And the beauty of havening is that you can self-apply it. Not many modalities allow you to do that with such an outcome. So I could be sitting like I was with you when we did it, in the room or the Zoom room or whatever room it was at the time, digitally, and you can be self-applying it while I'm facilitating it, which is what I did, right?
Mm.
But some people also don't want to be touched. Some people aren't comfortable with a facilitator, a coach, a practitioner like myself touching them. So even with people I have in my room sometimes who might have been through something rather traumatic where touch is triggering, even them
Yeah.
touching themselves can be problematic. So it's a tool that can help you self-soothe, cope, change the landscape of the brain, deal with your traumas and deal with your everyday upsets, whether you're in the room or not. It's really a personal preference.
Mm. All right. Well, I'm curious to understand what's the principle behind, or the explanation, the scientific explanation, if you like, behind why touch works, and of
Sure.
course the rest of what you do during a
Yeah.
havening session.
Well, touch is releasing that love hormone, oxytocin. We need that for survival. And when you think about the hormones that are released, the happy hormones, we call them, when you do the havening touch, these are four very strong and necessary hormones for human existence. You have the oxytocin, which is the love hormone. You have serotonin, you have dopamine, and then you have GABA. And these four hormones are really necessary, and they hit us differently. One is what you might see when you enjoy a good ice cream cone, or a dessert that you love. One might be after a great workout. One might be after you are holding hands or getting a wonderful hug from someone you love. But imagine that there is one technique, which is havening, that really hits all four of those, right? So it's essential for the human condition. It's, and I love the fact that it's so rapid, and also because it's affecting the amygdala, Amy, right? We call it CPR for the amygdala, meaning that if we give her a name, and we give it a name, and it can call it whatever you want. We just call it Amy because amygdala. But Amy is being reminded in that moment that she's a warrior. She is safe. Much like if a child falls and skins their knee, the first thing the caretaker will do is pick that child up, give them a hug, and let them know everything's okay. Why
Hmm.
are we not saying that to ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? Why
Yeah.
are we not saying that to ourselves? Everything's okay. If we do it to a child when they need to be nurtured and cared for, it's no different when we're an adult saying it to ourselves. I'm okay. The worst is over. And all is well. All is well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's another thing my business coach often says is that inner voice is our inner child,
Mm.
and when when we're having either negative thoughts or um, yeah, she says the inner child's having a tantrum. So it's very much like, okay, give comfort that inner child. Tell
Yeah.
them, let them know it's all okay. It's all going to be good.
And it's really loving all parts of ourselves. There's a
Hmm.
lot to be said about uh, interfamily systems, which IFS, which is another really great form of like loving all parts of yourself. Which part of you is showing up when you don't, get asked to dinner by a group? Suddenly, if you get upset by that, is that really you at the age you are now upset, or was that, the 8-year-old that wasn't invited to sit at the lunch table? Like, it's really getting to know the parts of yourself that are showing up so that you can support that part of you and befriend it.
Hmm.
Remind it that it's okay and that you care about it. And he was an adult, are here to show up and say, all is well. The worst is over. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great analogy. And for those of us that weren't necessarily real good at sports, I'm sure we can all relate to being the last person that got picked to go on one of the two teams when it
I've
was,
been there.
okay, I pick you, I pick you.
Right. I
Yeah.
have been there. When I remember sprouting up being like the tallest kid in 5th grade, suddenly I sprouted and I'm like, well, I'm either going to be first on the team to be picked for basketball, or I'm going to be last on the team to be picked for, I don't know, softball,
Yeah.
But yeah, we all go back to that inner child. It's really part of us, and loving that part of ourselves, whatever age it is that's showing up, is really important, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Excellent. Well, you mentioned in the havening technique principles or why it works, you mentioned the um, four. No, I've lost the word now.
It's okay.
The four
Oh, the happy hormones.
hormones. That's what I'm
Yes.
looking for.
Right.
Hormones.
Yes.
It went blank. Mind went blank
No
there. The
worries.
hormones um, that are triggered
Mhm.
by the technique. And I know you also do a lot of work with food and how food
Mhm.
nutrition plays into all this. And of course, food triggers hormones as well. So
Mhm.
just give us a little bit of a snapshot of how does our nutrition play into
Oh
this
boy.
whole equation.
You
I know
know,
it's a big
it
topic.
no,
Yeah.
it is. I think about it because I do get asked this a lot, and I love that people are. I have to say, I'm really impressed by the fact that people are definitely more in touch with how they are nourishing their bodies, and I don't just mean with food. We're nourishing our bodies, our minds, our spirits every day. And, I come from schooling from Integrative Nutrition, IIN, which is the largest health coaching school in the world. I've been certified in Integrative Nutrition for years, and we have a saying in Integrative Nutrition that you have the primary and the secondary wheel of nutrition. Your secondary wheel is actually the nutrients you're putting in your body, you're eating, you're absorbing, right? Like that, your nutrients that are actually caloric. Though that's secondary nutrition. Primary nutrition is your home life, your surroundings, your career, your family, your faith. That's the bigger wheel, right? That's the
Mm.
mindfulness wheel. And when this wheel is actually in a better place, you might make better decisions with the foods. But
Mm.
like I said earlier, food is thy medicine. Medicine is thy food. It doesn't mean you can't have, Girl Scout cookies or an Oreo every once in a while, but it's like treating yourself as one thing, uh, going to food as a source of comfort continuously means that there's something deeper going on. And when I work with clients on their relationship with food, because it really is a relationship, I'm not just working on the relationship with food, I'm working on the relationship with self. Why are
Yeah.
you going there? Why do you feel the need to open the refrigerator or the cupboards or the closets at 11 o'clock at night when you had a bad day or a bad date, or the project didn't turn out the best way, or you're just feeling like you want to treat yourself, which is fine. I don't believe in cheat days. I believe in treat days. We got to stop
Mm.
making things negative and shaming people for what they do. And that's where you see change, because it's all about the relationship, right? And,
Mm.
there's really no right or wrong kind of dietary plan you do. I mean, I'm not someone that likes to label someone a vegetarian or a vegan or a pescatarian or a whatever-tarian, because then you are so much about your thing rather than about yourself. It's no different than calling yourself a diagnosis, you know? I'm diabetic rather than
Yeah.
I'm dealing with, or I am living a life with diabetes. There's a difference in that. The language you use and
Mm.
choose toward yourself
That's right.
can be
Yeah.
very empowering. So yes,
Mm.
diabetes is part of your life, whoever you are. But you don't have to say I'm diabetic, because it really takes the power away from you. So
It
I think it
does. Yeah.
goes
It becomes part of your character, doesn't it? It's
right.
and
And
you hang on to that because it's your
right.
identity.
Right.
Yep.
I'm a victim, or I have been
Mm.
a victim of. That puts it in the past tense, meaning that you're dealing with it. So
Mm.
the empowerment comes from the words you use and choose, the relationship you have with yourself. The stronger relationship you have with yourself is going to make a much stronger relationship with anything around you, whether it's food or people or surroundings
Mm.
or experiences, which is kind of what I mentioned earlier about the hug it out. It's that you have to have a space for healing and understanding and gratitude. And that's not about others, it's about self first. Once that's strong, once that's solid, once that foundation is there, then you have a much healthier relationship with those things around you, right? Including
Mm.
food.
Wonderful. Well, that's kind of really highlighted the whole aspect of the holistic
Yeah.
the holistic work you do, because everything kind of is interconnected, and the foundation really is taking care of self.
Absolutely. I mean, being someone that is a holistic health coach, integrative nutrition health coach, also a holistic mental health practitioner, as a havening practitioner and a hypnotherapist, all of that is holistic because it's about the whole self, right? And I'm taking control of self. So that's a holistic approach, right? And that's
Mm.
why, you know, much of what we do in the world absolutely should be more holistic, because that's going to put more of the control back in your own hands to see where you need support outside of yourself. That's where you go integrative. Where do I need the support? Right? So when people come to me,
Mm.
I'm supporting them on their journey. I'm not healing you. I am not Sometimes people call me a healer, and I'm not very keen on that word because I can't heal
Mm.
anyone but myself. I can be a guide by the side. I can mirror back at you what you don't see in yourself. I can certainly be the person that is supporting you on the journey and giving you the guidance based on my experiences, but I'm not healing you.
Yeah.
That is something I don't want to take away from any client I have.
Yeah. That's a really important message. Yeah. Hmm. All right. Well, this is fascinating, Hilary. I could go on talking about all these topics a lot more all day, but I think it's a good point now, though, to move on to the buzz round, which
Oh,
is our innovation round. It's the same 5 questions I ask of every guest. And the idea is you'll give us some really snappy, insightful answers that'll inspire the listener to go and do something awesome today.
I love this. I do something like this on my show, and it's always weird when it's reversed. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hard. All the people on my show are always like, what do you mean rapid fire? All right.
Yeah.
Let me get myself in a frame of mind here. Do a little havening, bring down get into the parasympathetic nervous system here. Okay, I'm ready.
All right, you ready? What's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
To be more innovative is to trust self.
Hmm. I love it. Yeah, can
Is
you
that supposed to be
elaborate a
quick
little on that?
answers? Quick. Oh, okay.
Yeah, quick,
Okay.
but with a
All right.
little bit of depth.
Sure. So to be more innovative, I think it comes from being able to trust yourself first, to know that you're a creative being, that you have thoughts that are different from others, and that there's nobody else like you. So trust yourself to be creative and take risks.
Hmm. Love it. Take risks. Yeah, that's. Tell Amy she's safe. She'll be good.
She's safe. Yes.
Yeah. All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
The best thing I've done to develop new ideas, besides sitting in my car where I get so many of my ideas coming to me while I'm driving, which is never good because I can't write them down. But I would say for me, creating new ideas is really sitting in the silence. I meditate daily along with havening. I find that when I sit in the silence, the answers come. And that is when I find myself being really creative. Sometimes it's just so organic and unexpected.
Hmm.
And life experiences around me are so much a part of my own creativity.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good advice to sit in silence, and
Mhm.
it can take various forms. I know when I go cycling on my own is when I get a lot of ideas because then I'm kind of everything else can shut out and I'm just there enjoying the moment. Hmm.
Which totally lends itself to who somebody needs to go out there and invent something to where we can actually turn these thoughts into ideas, because we certainly can't do anything about it when we're cycling and driving.
That's right. Yeah, I was
I
going
mean,
to suggest I've started. I bought. My wife was a big fan of the smartwatch,
uh-huh.
and I always thought this is a bit of a toy, uh, but then I learnt that you can voice prompt
Mhm.
the smartwatch, and you can voice prompt it to record your voice. And I thought
Mhm.
that's brilliant. I will use
Yes.
that on my bike rides when I get an idea. I'll just voice prompt it, hey, record this, and so that's what I do now.
It's a great idea. I've started doing that too, but sometimes it's not when you don't have your hands free or you haven't set up the voice prompt. Uh,
Yeah.
that's the problem, but that is an alternative for sure, definitely.
Wonderful. All right. So I've just shared a resource. What's a favorite resource you use most often?
A resource in what way?
Well, it could
As far
be
as
something like the watch, or it could
yeah.
be software, or it could even be um, the
Hmm.
people you surround yourself with.
Well, that's a big one. That's actually a really
Hmm.
good one. I think surround yourself with people who lift you up. Surround yourself with they don't have to necessarily agree with you. In fact, it's actually better. My dad used to have a saying that surround yourself with people who massage your neurons, meaning that it creates the space for thinking about things outside of your what you know so well, right? We need
Hmm.
other things to kind of massage the neurons in a way. So definitely I would say choose your people, your tribe wisely. people that are going to lift you up,
Hmm.
people are going to help you think, mirror back what you don't see in yourself sometimes. Other resources I would say is just creating a safe space for yourself, things that bring you joy. I tend to I use a lot of essential oils in my home. I have a toxic free environment. So crowding out those things that are toxic, that includes people, I think
Hmm.
that's a resource, you know?
Hmm.
I do, is creating a toxic
Yes.
free environment as much as possible because we can't control
Yeah.
everybody that's in our circle, but we can certainly control our own, just like we can control our thoughts.
Hmm. Wonderful. I love the neuron massaging um, people. Yeah.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
dad had some good,
Because
he had some good ones back in the day.
yeah, yeah. Because it goes beyond the people who don't necessarily agree with you. It's kind
Mhm.
of like people who challenge you to be better and people
Mhm.
who inspire you to be better, isn't it?
And
Hmm.
sometimes people outside of yourself, especially, and I say this to my clients all the time, that I'm going to mirror back at you what you don't see in yourself. And I'm going to do
Hmm.
that because you're stuck in your thoughts and I'm going to be in your head to get you out of it, right? Because you're stuck in your head. So,
Hmm.
and it's not controlling them, it's sometimes just shaking things up a little bit so that they're able to see something they might not have seen, because eventually they do. Eventually I do.
Hmm.
It, perspective of somebody else outside of yourself can sometimes be very helpful, and then other times it can be hurtful. So that goes back to really surrounding yourself with the kind of
Gotcha.
people you can trust.
Hmm. Wonderful. All right. And what's the best way to keep a client on track when you're working with them?
Well, the most important thing, and I'll say this first session with anyone, even before they become a client, is that my goal more than anything is building a trust and a connection with you. I want
Hmm.
you to feel like you're in a safe container. I want you to know you're in a safe container, rather, but I can't bring that about. You find that yourself. The first step is the alignment of coming together with me anyway. But I think having trust and connection with those you serve is, you can't put a price on that. And then
Hmm.
from that, and that can happen in time, but I feel like with my clients, they feel it rather quickly just because I'm coming from the most authentic space I possibly can. You know, I live my life with that kind of integrity and I take it very seriously. And I, what kind of coach do I want is the kind of coach I want to be, right? It's the
Hmm.
same thing with any relationship. If you want to have a relationship with someone, a certain kind of relationship, be it personal or professional, create the list and then be the list.
Hmm. Yeah, I love it. Um, Building that trust, it's so consistent with our message of kind of bringing humanity back into everything we do into business. Yeah.
Right. And especially in the social media age, there's so many people out
Hmm.
there that are coaches and, doing this and doing, and that's great. I mean, there's so many good people doing it, but there are also some people who aren't living authentically. And there are oftentimes I'm asked, what do you think about those people? And I'm like, I don't. I don't. I don't worry about
Hmm.
the bad eggs in the world because my energy is going to go to being the best egg, you know?
Hmm.
And I don't want to give that any attention because the people that know will find me. The people that want help will find me. The people that understand that I'm coming from that authentic space, they're going to find me.
Hmm.
And if I'm not for them, they're going to find somebody who is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
And
okay too.
which is part of letting go of the
Yeah,
expectation, isn't it? Hmm. That we
absolutely.
spoke about earlier. Hmm.
We can't help everyone, but there's so many
Hmm.
people out there that can provide help that I know that if somebody comes to me and I'm like, that's outside my scope of practice, I'm not going to keep you just to keep you. Like the antithesis of being in therapy and be in this therapeutic field is that we lose our clients because they're finding healing. you know,
Hmm.
we don't want to keep our clients. We don't want to keep
Yeah.
our patients. We want them to get better. It's the ones that worry me, or it doesn't worry me. The ones that are of concern are the ones that try to keep you small. And but you know what? If you're wise enough, you'll realize it. You'll realize when to step away and find something that
Hmm.
works for you. It's okay to break up with your therapist. It's okay. You might
All
have
right.
reached a different point of
And
growth.
yeah, yeah. All right. And a final question of the buzz round. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
The number one thing people can do to differentiate themselves from one another, um,
Hmm.
is that what you mean? Like how they're different?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just
From one another or from
yeah,
from kind of the crowd.
just be yourself. I mean, there's really no other answer to that. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to differentiate there's no other being on this planet like you. Be authentic and unapologetically yourself. Show up with integrity and authenticity, with whatever brings you joy. Live that joy, because when you are living in a state of joy and loving what you do, it's going to show through. It's going to come
Hmm.
through. And then nobody else, even if somebody likes the same thing, is never going to have the same life experience you have. And that's really the only way that you can be 100% different from anyone else, is that you're showing up with your experiences, what brings you joy, what fuels you, what lights your fire. And that's what's going to come into your space. If you put that out there in the world, that frequency is what you're going to mesh with.
Hmm. And it comes back in some ways. I mean, there's so many people have given me that answer now, or a version of that answer, be yourself, which I think, uh, as you say, it's probably the only genuine answer. I think
Well,
it's
maybe there's
there's a lot of self awareness that needs to
yes.
come into that, though, where people first of all know what are my strengths and what are some of
Mhm.
the unique things that I bring to the table that others value, but at the same time also not belittling those things or not undervaluing them, and having the confidence to say, well, this is me, and yes, I can model off somebody else because I admire
Mhm.
what they're doing and I admire the success they've had, but I don't need to copy them. um,
Right. And don't compare yourself to others. You know, we
mm,
we can get really heavy into that game of comparison, especially in this internet digital age of everybody's online and social media. You see somebody else posting, they've got a 30 likes more than you do, or they've got 100 followers more than you do. I mean, I think to elaborate on that, we're more than our numbers, right?
mm,
And that means the likes, the follows, the zip code, the address, the waistline, the weight, all of it. Stop comparing yourself to other people, because
mm,
you are there's no one else like you, and you're here for that reason, because you are so genuinely yourself, you know?
mm.
You're a gift.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Great message to conclude the buzz round on. All right. Well, this has been absolutely fabulous, this conversation. I really enjoyed it. Now, where can people learn more about you and maybe even reach out and say thanks for what you've shared, Hilary?
Oh, I'd love that. Well, you can reach out to me by just going to my, obviously follow me on any social media at Hilary Russo, HILARYRUSSO, one L, two S's. And I'm pretty a regular poster. So I put out a lot of content to inspire, with hopes of inspiring. Also, my website, hilaryrusso.com, and you can learn more about havening, holistic approaches. And, for your listeners, what I want to do is give a gift. If people they're interested in learning about havening. One thing I love to do, because it is one of those modalities that's only been around for about 20 something years, and it's not the most common that people are used to hearing about. But if anyone's interested, I do complimentary mini sessions for those if they want to check out havening one-on-one with me, and we'll do a short little havening session. And if you want, I could share that link with you, and you could put that in the notes for people to give it a go. But it's also on my website at hilaryrusso.com.
Excellent. Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for that. That's very generous.
Of
And I
course.
certainly, my experience of a session like that was kind of impromptu at the
Mhm.
time, but it was I found it very inspiring and very powerful. So
I'm so glad to
thanks
hear
for that.
that. It only needs to
Yeah.
be a few minutes to calm the mind, to de-stress, and to
Mm.
go deeper. We could do that work together as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, finally, what action would you like our listener to take from today's conversation, Hilary?
I would love, well, you know what? I would love an action of folks to reach out to me, learn more about havening. I mean, you have the power to heal your mind. You have the power to change your thoughts, moods, behaviors, and actions and habits. And if you're here listening to this show, it's because you want to be a better person and show up better in this world, right? So if you're looking for your business to be better, to up things, to level up, to upgrade, then why not start learning how to put havening into your approach or hug it out with yourself and learn something new that you can put in that toolbox to use whenever you need. So I'm going to challenge people to reach out to me. That's what I'm going to do. Learn
Excellent. Well,
something
great.
new.
That's a very clear and easy call to action that people can take, and we'll have the link in the show notes, so it's
Great.
going to be very easy to click through and reach out. All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing your time and insights with us so generously here on the Innova.Buzz podcast, Hilary. I've really enjoyed the conversation today. We've kind of touched on the surface of a lot of areas, dug a little bit deeper into some. I'm sure there's lots of other conversations we could have. So let's keep in touch, and we might revisit the conversation at a later date.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll see each other at the next podcast meetup. As podcasters, we do love to chat and interact.
That's right. Well, thanks, Hilary.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.